Nací en esta ribera del Arauca vibrador.
The virtual embassy of Venezuela in Israel. We are starting a program, and this is the first of it, where we want to bring together Venezuelans and Israelis and maybe some other experts on a topic of interest. We hope to do this monthly. With the help of God, we will be able to do it. Of course, we are all today suffering from a pandemic, COVID. Words that were not known maybe by our grandfathers. There's a new term, virus. We all know, COVID. We didn't know about that before. As a matter of fact, as a layman, I hardly know what a virus is. I understand that it is a bit of genetic material. Whether it's alive or not, it's something in between, sort of. It is very elementary. And it is the greatest parasite in this world. It lives off somebody else. It gets into our body. Apparently, it needs another cell, and it induces that cell to reproduce the virus, so that by itself, it cannot reproduce itself. I really don't know, but these experts are going to tell us. I understand that in the oceans, there are more viruses than stars in the universe. As a matter of fact, our gut is also full of viruses. Viruses apparently are important for our existence, as a matter of fact. I remember reading something not too long ago that our memory was really developed by a virus, something like that. Maybe some of you can explain that to me. In any event, right now, the virus is our enemy number one. No one thought that the world would come to a standstill because of something that is so minuscule. You can't see it. You need a microscope. And I guess not everybody can identify it. And that has stopped the entire world all over. And it has attacked everybody. As a matter of fact, they say that globalization in a certain aspect provided the virus the means of propagating itself all over the world. On the one hand, we advance. On the other hand, we go back. In any event, it is our enemy number one at this moment. But maybe one of the good parts also that has brought us a little bit closer together. I know my grandchildren help me out and so on. I'm already advanced in age, and I understand that I belong to the group that is most susceptible to suffer from this virus. So I want to give a very special welcome to Dr. Ramzi Kurd of the Shaarei Tzedek Hospital in Jerusalem. He's the director of the Corona unit, and we are talking about Corona. Interesting, you know, Corona in Spanish means crown. And you would identify this with a king, something good, but this is a bad king, obviously, that we are suffering from. We have Dr. Alexis Riera. He's the director of the Central Hospital in Valencia, Venezuela. And he is also, of course, involved in the coronavirus that is right now the pandemic that is present in Venezuela as well as in all other countries. And of course, my dear friend, Dr. Daniel Kaswan. He is from the Nova Southeastern University School of Medicine, a fellowship director also in Aventura Hospital, and above all, he's my friend. So I am very happy to have all of you today. And I'd like to start with you, Dr. Ramzi. Tell us what's going on in Israel. I thought Israel was doing very well with the pandemic. In any event, tell us, what is a pandemic anyway?
A pandemic is like a virus that affects many people, without any relation to a season or to a place, okay? So in Israel, the situation, it started, the first infection was about like the end of February or in the first days of March. And then there was, we took the precautions, we started to make hospitals ready for the pandemic as well. Like we were already know what's worldwide, that we're talking what happened in China and then what happened in Italy and what happened in Spain. So we started the precautions, and we started to make the hospitals in Israel ready for the coronavirus patients. In the beginning, like everything in its beginning, we don't know much about the virus. We don't know much about its treatments or about its management. There were a lot of primary papers that was published about a lot of management and some of the medications that could help. And this went crazy around all the world, worldwide. And then little by little, we started to see the patients. At the beginning, we saw the patients with the mild, and then with the moderate, and then with the severe, and then with the critical, and then with the mechanical ventilations. We had a lot of patients, if we can call them wave 1 and wave 2 in Israel. I don't totally agree with this. I think the wave 2 is the continuity of the wave 1, because we didn't get to 0 patients. But anyway, there was the precautions that were held by the Ministry of Health and the government and the hospitals and the population. Together, we on June, we ended up in a very low number of patients per day. And then again, we got up until what we are today. So I think it's like about one wave with 2 parts, or if we can say it's like wave 1 and wave 2, but I think it's a continuity for the wave 1.
Well, this is the Venezuelan embassy in Jerusalem. So we are using English because most people understand English. However, I think we should do a little Spanish also. So I want to direct myself to Dr. Riera. Dígame, doctor Riera, ¿cuál es la situación de la pandemia en Venezuela? ¿Está generalizada comparado con otros países? ¿Cómo estamos en Venezuela?
Al día de hoy, en nuestro país, prácticamente no tenemos ni una sola región que se pueda considerar libre de esta pandemia. Tenemos estados que están al sur del país, en la frontera con Brasil, en donde hay una población indígena importante, y hasta en estas zonas, lo que es el estado Bolívar y el estado Amazonas, se han registrado casos. También se han presentado casos en algunas islas que pertenecen a nuestro país, como es, por ejemplo, la isla de Margarita y en Los Roques. Es decir, que ninguno de nuestros estados ha estado libre de esta pandemia. Podemos decir que en la actualidad casi por el 100% del país ha sido tocado de una u otra forma por dicha patología.
Bueno, pero ¿se está enfrentando bien la pandemia en Venezuela, doctor?
Bueno,
¿Tiene recursos?
Señor.
¿Tiene recursos para enfrentarla?
Nosotros en todos nuestros hospitales estamos recibiendo a los pacientes que lo meriten porque tengan una condición de severidad o gravedad de la patología, y le estamos recibiendo. Sin embargo, tenemos recursos, tal vez no en la cantidad que quisiéramos, pero hasta el momento, al menos en nuestro hospital, podemos contar con recursos de protección primaria para la atención de estos pacientes.
Okay, Dr. Kaswan, tell me, where did this start from? You know, there are all sorts of rumors that it started in a lab, it came from some kind of animals in live animal markets in China, and then it propagated all over the world. Where did this come from, Dr. Kaswan?
You want English or Spanish?
Well, do it in English and then we'll go into Spanglish.
Both, we can try it both. Well, you know, the coronaviruses are not new to the humankind. So it's not that this is a new type of a virus family. They've been known, and we've had the common cold. There are 4 coronaviruses that causes the common cold. And we've had in the past what was called the SARS-1, and also we have the Middle Eastern respiratory coronavirus. So these type of family is not new. En español voy a decir, los coronavirus no son virus, la familia no es una familia algo nuevo, existe en el mundo, hay coronavirus en humanos y en la parte animal. Hay 4 coronavirus que dan el resfriado común en los niños, muy frecuente, y también hemos tenido el SARS-1 y el MERS anteriormente. Este nuevo tipo de miembro de esta familia, this new member of this SARS family or SARS coronavirus 2, because it resembles to the one the most, it's been identified probably coming from the bats, which can harbor many coronaviruses. Entonces los murciélagos pueden tener en su sistema por mucho tiempo muchos coronavirus, y la teoría es que de ahí lo que no se sabe exactamente cuál es el intermedio llega a entrar en la parte del humano. There have been many episodes in the world where we've had viruses that jump from animal world to the humans. And then starts, of course, humans then are not being previously exposed, then you have susceptible humans. And then depending on how easy that transmission from a human to human becomes, then you may have an epidemic or a pandemic, which is what we're on. So I think that in my view, this comes from the animal to human type of interaction. And we've known for time that pandemics happen, and we've had countries doing pandemic preparedness. So por mucho tiempo se sabe que las pandemias ocurren, y siempre los países, o muchos países han tenido planes de preparación para pandemia. Entonces siempre se habla de que esta situación es algo que podía ocurrir. We've had a lot of flu, and I think we were thinking about a influenza pandemic, which was what we were thinking about was going to be likely the new pandemic, and we ended up with the coronavirus. So I don't think, in my view, that this was a lab, type of thing. We know that these situations have happened and could happen, and I think that from a bat to the human, which one was the middle person or middle animal exactly, is still in debate, I think.
Dr. Caswan, you are in Miami, you're in Florida, you're in the United States now. Tell us, how is the United States reacting? Is the United States does it have more deaths than anybody else? There are all sorts of opinions because it has become a little politicized, I think also. What do you think? Has the reaction of the United States, of the federal government, of the state government been the appropriate one to the epidemic?
Well, I think one of the issues with this pandemic has been, all the political things that have come into the mix, which I think has kind of blurred a little bit, what the ideal situation could be. And also we need to understand that the United States, even though it's seen as a country, it behaves as 50 different little countries. Creo que los Estados Unidos, aunque se ve como un país único, el comportamiento y su sistema es como cada estado es independiente, entonces como si fueran 50 pequeños países. So even though there is a centralized Center for Disease Control that have putting up, some of the issues and the guidance, I think the states can act on its own in terms of how they want to implement it. And there has been a lot of criticisms at the beginning in terms of how quickly they reacted and how fast they did things. And I think there were issues with like testing that we still have issues up until today. The capacity to do rapid testing and then tracing, that had impacted from then on the response and society, interpretation of how to behave to try to slow down the spread of the virus. And the results, if we've been impacted, heavily. I think el resultado es que aquí ha habido bastantes casos, también se han hecho muchas pruebas. La mortalidad es algo que creo que hay que ver en el largo plazo, porque realmente uno sabe los casos diagnosticados, pero también hay muchos casos no diagnosticados que son leves, y entonces la mortalidad es difícil determinarla en un punto que sea la parte global. Entonces estamos hablando de mortalidad en casos diagnosticados, y eso quizás sobreestima el número final. So we're like talking about mortality in diagnosed cases when there's also a number of cases more out that we don't diagnose, so then the mortality may be an overestimation in terms of real terms.
Doctor Riera, díganos, ¿cuál es el futuro de la pandemia en Venezuela? ¿La vamos a ver incrementada? ¿Se va a de alguna manera a limitar? ¿Por cuánto tiempo va a durar eso, doctor Riera?
En este momento estamos viviendo lo que llamaríamos el pico de la pandemia y la proyección es que esto se va a permanecer en el número de casos incrementándose cada día, al menos en los próximos meses. Tal vez septiembre, octubre, vamos a mantenerlo con picos muy altos de la pandemia. Esto, por supuesto, nos afecta porque si bien podemos contar con algunos recursos, estos recursos no son suficientes para la cantidad de casos que nos están llegando. Y tal vez el problema más grave que estamos enfrentando ahorita es la disponibilidad de cupos en terapia intensiva, porque muchos de estos pacientes ameritan ser conectados a ventilación mecánica y el volumen es tal de pacientes que nos llega que no tenemos suficientes ventiladores para poder cubrir toda la demanda. ¿Cuánto tiempo va a durar la pandemia? Hasta cuál va a ser la fecha en que podamos decir, bueno, ya fue superada, realmente no se sabe. No tenemos una fecha de cuál puede ser el fin de esta pandemia y yo creo que al menos por lo que queda de año vamos a tener que convivir con la pandemia.
Ustedes son expertos en la materia, pero yo soy un iniciado, no estoy iniciado, no sé. Lo único que sé es que estoy encarcelado en mi casa, ya son 4 meses, no sé cuánto tiempo. Mi pregunta es, ¿cuánto tiempo más voy a estar encarcelado? Aunque no me quejo, porque a mi edad estar en casa no es nada malo tampoco, ¿no? Me entretengo con muchas otras cosas también, pero gente joven en especial, me imagino que no pueden tolerar esa seclusión en la cual se encuentran ahora. Por eso es que... Sí.
Yo creo, mi consejo con un poco de humor es que vaya preparando unas buenas recetas de hallaca, porque a lo mejor le va a tocar preparar hallacas encerrado, porque al menos hasta diciembre seguro que vamos a estar con este problema de la cuarentena. Por lo que resta del año estoy seguro que no va a haber posibilidades de poder salir exitosos de esta pandemia. Y en estos momentos la pandemia está afectando más a las personas mayores, sexta década, séptima década, o pacientes que tengan alguna otra patología. Los pacientes diabéticos, los pacientes hipertensos, los pacientes fumadores han sido los que han sido afectados más severos por esta patología.
Dr. Ramsey Kurt, tell me, are there any remedies right now if one gets sick with COVID and has some very serious manifestations of this infectious disease? Is there something you can do for them in the hospital? Because we see that people die. And many people say that this won't be solved until there is a vaccine. And we all understand that they are racing toward the implementation of a real vaccine. It is being tested now in thousands of people. How close are we to a vaccine? And Dr. Kurt, will this be a solution to the problem, a vaccine?
Okay, I will start about the management in the hospitals. We know that coronavirus with severe manifestations need hospital. The management, we don't have for now, no vaccine and no drug that can help to or eliminate the virus. But we know that the management of the coronavirus patients, the severe ones or the moderate, severe and critical patients, is the management with what's called the supportive care, which is something that is very, very important to save the life of the patient of the severe or moderate critical coronavirus patient. So this is the base of the management of a patient in the hospitals. The supportive care, it's not only to give drugs, also to give them the oxygen that they need. In many cases, or most of the cases that come to the hospital and they need to be hospitalized, they need oxygen. This is the main reason why a patient comes to be managed at a hospital. And the other thing that, like, causes death, the cause of death in coronavirus, say severe or critical manifestations, or coronavirus, say infectious disease, is probably, for now, we think there's a lot of things, but the preliminary thing that it's what is called acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is an inflammation inside the tissue and the tissue of the lungs, which causes the respiratory failure and death. So until now, we know that ARDS is a syndrome that can be caused by a lot of diseases, not only coronavirus. It's not new for us, or not new for the humans. But in general, it is, yes, supportive care in general, but also in other causes, we can treat the cause. So we can buy time by treating the cause and give the supportive care in other reasons or other causes of coronavirus. In coronavirus, it's a little bit, we have to buy the time with the supportive care until the patient gets better. For now, maybe we'll talk about the management or the drugs that we use for now lately, but the supportive care is the main line of treatment for the management of the coronavirus infectious disease. Now about the vaccine, yes, there is a race worldwide, which is good and bad. We think it's good because I think the world needs the vaccine. I'm not sure that the vaccine will end the pandemic, but it will make it easier to understand the virus. It will make it easier to manage these patients, because whenever you have the vaccine, you still have to vaccinate a lot of people, and then you do not know for how much people for how much time the vaccine works until we have the antibodies that can cause. But in any way, of course, the vaccine will help us a lot and will help the world. Now about the race. The race is good, but the challenge is very, very hard, because in general, we know that vaccines take years until they are in the market and we can use them. In the coronavirus, we don't have this time. So the race, you have to go through phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3 and clinical trials. So this is what is important. At last, you need the vaccine, but you need a vaccine with side effects that cannot make people do not want to take it.
Mm-hmm. You know, as a layman, I say to myself, here is a world that right now, I'm speaking to you, who is in Jerusalem. I'm speaking to Dr. Vieira, who is in Valencia, Venezuela. I'm speaking to Dr. Castwan, who is in Miami, and I am in Miami as well. Technology is great. You know, we needed, in Spanish, there's a word, aterrizar, to land. Now, you don't land on the moon, because land is the earth. What do? It's something, we reach the moon. We are sending somebody to Mars. And here comes something that is tiny, 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 and is putting us all, destroying our daily lives. You know, on the one hand, we are very efficient in some things, and on the other, it's not. You know, a vaccination takes years. By now, one would think that you ask Google, I have coronavirus. What is the vaccination for it? And Google gives you the answer. Google knows everything. So how come in this field we're in such a situation? Dr. Kaswan, if the vaccine comes out and I'm lucky to be able to get a vaccine, am I able then to lead a normal life regardless of what goes on? I shouldn't be afraid anymore of contagion. What do you say, doctor?
Well, you know, like things in medicine are not necessarily like black and white, unfortunately, for some things, and unfortunately for others. You know, vaccines are meant to protect or to lessen the impact of an illness. So when we get flu vaccination, you know, the idea is that if you get exposed to the flu, you have antibodies that will protect you from the flu or give you a milder disease. No, they're not 100% effective. They're rarely 100% all the time. and the immunity, as you know, they were explaining before, you can have an immunity after the vaccine that maybe peaks and then comes down after some time, and then you'll need more vaccines to keep it up. So I think that, you know, a lot we won't know, and then the fast forward that we're doing with things are a lot of assumptions. Of course, it will give you a level of protection and a level of probably more, you know, calm, that you have something that it's giving you some protection, but we won't know until really this gets, you know, widespread and people start using it to see the effect of it. There is also, by that time, areas like Florida, which have had, you know, a lot of cases, and you've probably reached a point that you're gonna lessen the disease spread. And what you're trying to do is that, but the infection is not that it's gonna go away. It's not that we're gonna get rid of coronavirus. I mean, coronavirus will be here and they'll still be here forever. It's just that we're gonna have either people very immunized, or we're gonna have vaccines that are gonna make us not have the disease severity that we have right now. But, you know, whether we're going to give you the vaccine, I'm going to tell you, like, okay, now go out and you're protected. You know, nobody knows 100% at this point how that's going to pan out. But definitely it's going to be another step in the right direction to open up societies and go back to normalcy. But, you know, a lot is still to be determined based on the studies and what we get as a result from them.
You know, Dr. Castron, there was a president in the United States. His name was Truman. You know, he said that he wanted a one-armed lawyer, a lawyer with only one arm. Why do you want a lawyer with only one arm? He doesn't want him to be able to say, on the other hand, this. In other words, no one wants to tell me, I have a vaccine, I'm free of it. No, maybe yes, maybe no, but apparently there's much more yes than no. In other words, if there would be a vaccine, it would be much better than the situation that we are right now. I would be much more protected. Is that it? But it comes, you know, some say a moral question. You know, how many vaccines are going to be produced? You know, in Sudan, in God knows, in Madagascar, in Ecuador, when will the vaccine get there? Once you start producing vaccine, to whom do you give it? Do you give it to the older, to the younger? Well, the older lived already. Maybe the younger you should give it so they have a life ahead of them. The older, on the other hand, are more vulnerable. How do you make these judgments? Whom do you give it first? Is it going to cost much money? Will I be able to afford a vaccination? Or should all the states offer free vaccinations for every member of society? What do you say, Dr. Kurt?
I'm pleased that I don't have to take this decision, but what I think is, it's like just like you said, it's very moral. Okay, so there's committees that take these actions and decide and consider which yes or no. But what we know for now about the COVID-19 is that younger people, yes, with low percentages, like, yes, there is complications, but the manifestations of the disease is less than the older patients. Okay, the immunocompromised is not like the non-immunocompromised. The older people with past history of some diseases will take it much more. The manifestations will be much more severe than other healthy people. So in the meanwhile, what I think is there's two populations that they need the vaccine. The first population is the population of who works in the health work facilities, because we are on shortage with the health work facilities. It's in general, I think in Israel, yes, I think in all the world, worldwide. But now it's much more, because we see more doctors, more nurses, more health workers that get infected or go to isolation because of this virus. And this makes it very, very hard to manage the patients and the departments. The other populations, I will not give ages, but I think it's the older people with other past history or manifestations that could get them into the severe or critical manifestations of the coronavirus.
Doctor Riera, díganos, usted tiene años de experiencia en el hospital, usted es el director del hospital. ¿Hemos aprendido algo de esta pandemia? La sociedad en general. Yo creo que por un lado creo que hemos sido mucho más solidarios los unos con los otros. Ya lo mencioné, que mis nietos me traen comida, hacen cualquier cosa por mí porque yo ya tengo cierta edad avanzada. Pero la sociedad en general, ¿usted cree que ha aprendido algo de que debemos de ser menos contrarios, antagónicos los unos con los otros, cuando hay problemas que nos azotan a todos? Eso no tiene que ver nada con cuál es la orientación política, religiosa, racial, nada. Indiscriminadamente ataca a todo el mundo. Hemos aprendido algo, doctor Riera. Usted tiene mucha experiencia de la vida y de la medicina. Díganos, ¿qué creemos?
Sí hemos aprendido, por ejemplo, en nuestro hospital, es un hospital universitario donde se dan varios posgrados. Entonces hay muchos médicos que están haciendo un posgrado de anestesiología, infectología, cardiología, etc. Y en este momento todos están abocados al problema COVID. Entonces muchos médicos que están o ya son especialistas o están haciendo un posgrado en otra especialidad han tenido que dejar un poco de lado esa formación académica para dedicar a la atención del COVID. Eso, por supuesto, es un sacrificio y es una labor que yo los felicito no solo a los que trabajan en el hospital, sino en todos los hospitales casi que del planeta, porque esto está afectando ahorita a todos los planetas, a todo el planeta. Eso no solo al personal médico, al personal de enfermería, al personal de las camareras, o sea, todos los que laboran en nuestro hospital están tratando de aportar un poco a solucionar el problema o al menos que las complicaciones no sean tan graves. Por supuesto, estamos en una situación en donde la parte económica ha sido muy complicada, entonces a veces los sueldos no son suficientes y aún así pues la gente sigue dando lo mejor de sí para poder solventar el problema que estamos viviendo en nuestro hospital. Y a nivel yo creo que la humanidad ha cambiado, está cambiando, espero que para bien, porque yo recuerdo que al inicio de esta pandemia tuve una reunión con mis alumnos y algunos colegas y yo les planteaba que esta pandemia tenemos que enfrentarla no solo desde el punto de vista científico, sino desde el punto de vista espiritual, familiar, e inclusive mezclando ya también la parte ética, la parte moral, porque se nos exige mucho y los médicos, si bien tenemos una formación para atender al paciente, también tenemos miedo. Y muchos de mis colegas tienen miedo. Miedo por ellos y miedo a contagiarse y llegar a su casa y contagiar también a su familia. Por ejemplo, muchos tienen a sus padres que son mayores o tienen familiares que tienen alguna comorbilidad y tienen miedo de llegar a su casa y contagiarlos. Entonces, todo el grupo familiar, aunque no sea profesional de la salud, han tenido que, de una u otra forma, ayudar a que estos trabajadores de la salud puedan seguir realizando su labor y darle todo el apoyo que necesitan. Y cuando tenemos ese miedo, pues, esa búsqueda espiritual yo creo que es importante.
Doctor Riera, creo que usted está resaltando un punto que a lo mejor nosotros los laicos en esta materia no apreciamos tanto. El sacrificio, la valentía de los que están en el campo de la salud, los médicos, las enfermeras, que están expuestos a tantas cosas y lo continúan haciendo. Y nunca se me ocurrió siquiera pensar en el hecho de que ellos pueden tener padres mayores y están preocupados por eso. Yo siempre estuve pensando solamente en ellos mismos, pero hay muchas consecuencias, muchos corolarios también. Yo creo que la humanidad le debe una gratitud extraordinaria, y no me refiero a cuestiones económicas y monetarias que también merece, porque uno tiene que tener pan para vivir, pero también la valentía y el arrojo, la empatía que tiene el mundo médico en esta situación. Dr. Kaswan, you are in Miami. Tell me something. You know, the American society is very utilitarian. You know, we are individualists. We think about ourselves. Do you think this pandemia has brought us a little bit closer together? Have we become a little bit more human and think less about dollars and cents, about Amazon, about Apple, about technology, and we think a little more about spiritual things, social things, friendly things? Do you feel closer to your family these days?
Well, I think that, yes, definitely we feel, you know, although we have been distanced from people that we loved, on the other hand, we try to be, you know, closer and appreciative of what we have. Es decir, como a pesar de que hemos estado separados de gente que queremos, nos sentimos a veces más cercanos y también apreciamos mucho más lo que tenemos. In terms of the American society, you know, we hope, that's the hope that we have, you know, raised to a little step up in terms of the understanding that what we are and what is important in our lives. You know, it's a very diverse society, and there has been a lot of, you know, opinions and sides of this. At the medical level, at the scientific level, I think there has been a very, very important closeness. This has been in the United States, and I think also across the world. We have reached out, we have shared experiences, we have communicated, we have become, if you want, more like an attempt of a single entity that can actually use one another for not only the moral and spiritual support, but also from the scientific and knowledge point of view, and what can I know from somebody that actually is going to help me and help the people that I'm trying to help. So I think at that level, we have raised the bar, and we have actually raised the society. I think, you know, it's an eye-opening. You know, this is, you can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, your life can change in a minute. And I think this has put a lot of us to just, you know, look down and say, you know, we have to fight this together. What I do is going to affect the person next to me. And if I don't always also keep that in mind, we're going to have consequences, you know, and I hope that that's true. It's you know, the reality will tell. Also, humankind tends to forget. So, you know, you may have at the crisis moment this awareness and things, time usually then comes in, and sometimes we forget. So we hope that that doesn't happen. Esperemos que las enseñanzas y toda esta situación realmente nos lleve a un nivel más alto, y no olvidemos todo lo que hemos pasado, y que eso nos ayude a funcionar mejor como sociedad.
I think it is a humbling experience for humanity. On the one hand, we think we understand the universe better, the black holes. There are all sorts of billions of stars going on. We have telescopes. We have so many things going for us. And on the other hand, we see there are certain things that we really don't understand quite well. And, you know, I'm a rabbi also. And I wouldn't say I'm a rabbi also. I'm first and foremost a rabbi, because I was a rabbi for 44 years, as you know, Dr. Kaswan, in Venezuela. I don't want to say I'm a rabbi also. And many people ask me, where is God? Why did God bring this to us? You know, my answer is, I have no idea. And not only that, I think that he who thinks he knows why doesn't know why. You know, to know why God does something, you have to be God. And we are not God. We can only see the manifestations of God. You know, in Spanish, they say, no hay mal que por bien no venga. There is some good in it also. We probably are learning lessons from it as well. But on the other hand, I think the following. I think that God gave us an intellect. He gave us brains. He gave us the ability to solve almost every problem. And every one of these cases is really some obstacle in our way so that we can become better, that we can learn more about nature, we can learn more about anatomy, physiology, or what have you. These are really obstacles in the way, but we are going to overcome them. So I really think, and I'd like to finish my part, that even though we are suffering very much right now, I have faith in humanity as well, that we are going to overcome it. We're going to learn how to treat it better. We're going to learn how to defend ourselves better, and we'll come closer together because of it. I want to give you, Dr. Riera, quiere una palabra de conclusión porque vamos a concluir. ¿Tiene usted un mensaje para la sociedad venezolana, para el mundo en general, sobre lo que podemos haber aprendido de esta pandemia?
Yo creo que la palabra clave aquí es solidaridad. Hemos aprendido a ser más solidarios, a ser más compasivos, a tratar y entender que este no es un problema individual, que es un problema que nos afecta a todos como colectivo, como humanos. Y que en la medida que nosotros seamos más solidarios, que seamos más prestos a ayudar al prójimo, probablemente vamos a salir fortalecidos, no solo de esta pandemia, sino de cualquier otra que nos pueda venir.
Dr. Kurd, do you think that Israeli society has learned something from this pandemia? You know, many a times we are worried and we are troubled by little things that happen in our family, that happen in our neighborhood, and here comes a problem that really is a national, a universal problem. Do you think Israeli society has learned something from this?
I'm sure that everyone learned something from this, for the good and for the bad also. For the good, I think that family matters, and our elder persons in our families matter. No, we're just like Dr. Daniel said, we're distancing from our beloved families, but we're closer to our families, and we're closer to our worldwide medical committees. So yes, I'm sure that everyone has learned from this experience, that we hope as soon as possible to end it and to get back to our lives.
Doctor Kaswan, usted tiene la última palabra. Díganos que hay algún mensaje para los americanos, para los venezolanos, porque usted baila en ambos. Usted es venezolano y americano. Díganos, ¿tiene algún mensaje para ambos?
Bueno, yo creo que el mundo ahorita es un mundo globalizado. Tenemos que pensar no solo como individuos, tenemos que querernos y ayudarnos. La tecnología nos ha ayudado en muchas cosas para eso. Creo que hay que simplemente tomar la vida en su contenido completo y darle sentido a las cosas básicas, porque eso, como decimos nosotros, amar al prójimo es amar a uno mismo, es la base de mucho de lo que la sociedad necesita hoy en día. Yo creo que a nivel global estar presente, siempre atender a los queridos y ayudarnos como grupo, y entender también que en el corto plazo estamos en una situación muy difícil, pero que va a pasar, y que depende de lo que estemos aprendiendo en este momento, eso nos servirá como la base para lo que pueda venir más adelante, porque tendremos otras situaciones difíciles en la vida, tendremos otras pandemias, tendremos otras crisis mundiales, y lo que estemos haciendo en este momento va a probablemente ser una base para lo que podamos mejorar y podamos enfrentar en una situación futura, porque el mundo no se va a acabar, la vida va a continuar, y tendremos nuevos retos, y entonces yo creo que como humanos tenemos que aprender para poder entonces tener esas herramientas y poder entonces mejorarnos a nosotros y a nuestro mundo.
Well, I want to thank Dr. Ramzi Kurd of Shaare Tzedek of the Corona Unit for his presence here today and for his wise comments. Also, Dr. Alexis Riera, the director of the Central Hospital in Valencia, Venezuela, who is also doing his utmost in order to confront this pandemia that affects Venezuela as well as everybody else. And of course, my dear friend, Dr. Daniel Kaswan. We know each other for many years, and I admire his work that he is doing right now. I want to thank each and every one of you. I also want to thank Vanessa Ventresca. She is actually the one that organized us. She organized this Zoom, and she is present today with the video direction as well. So to all of you, thank you very much. And to our dear friends in Israel, in Venezuela, and wherever you are, if you have an opportunity to watch what we did today, I think it is a tremendous challenge that we are all facing, but there is also hope for the future. This is not the end of the world. Dr. Kaswan just said it. It's not the end of society. We are going to overcome, and we will look back upon it as a very difficult episode in our lives. We will tell it maybe our grandchildren, because there have been epidemics years ago, in the beginning of the 20th century, in the Middle Ages. There have been terrible epidemics in the world, and yet humanity has overcome each and every one of these episodes. And I think we're going to do much better today than what we did a century ago in the beginning of the 20th century. So there is a future for humanity. And above all, I think that we have learned that we need each other, that we live in a spacecraft that is called the Earth. We share the same Earth. We share the same atmosphere. We share many things. We share the same ancestry, so that if we stick together, if we are more empathetic one with another, we surely will overcome this, and we will have a better tomorrow. In other words, yesterday maybe was better than today because we are suffering this, but tomorrow is going to be much better even than yesterday as well. So thank you all for participating with us. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you.
Gracias.
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 Thank you.
Yo nací en esta ribera del Arauca vibrador.
La alfa, la